I'd like us to talk about specifically fats a little more in depth for about 2 hours. So, for about not 2 hours, but around 1 hour, 30 minutes. So, by around 9:30, 9:45, we'll be done. If you have any question, you can kindly just type it in the chat box, or note it somewhere down so that once we are done with our lecture, or once I probably feel tired talking and ask for questions, you can kindly ask. I might go a little fast in today's class, um, but I believe that you will all understand me, despite of that. So someone can kindly confirm that you can see my slides. I believe they're being seen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So once more, Odiwar Denzel. I'm a wellness coach. I'm also a clinician with special interest in oncology. Um, with my little experience, my 5 years experience, I've met more, I've handled more cancer cases than any other condition. And in Kenya, cancer is actually on the rise. And at least one in two individuals have, in one way or the other, interacted, or you've been affected by, you know, deaths as a result of cancer. Those are times we were having a conversation. That's me, Elisha, and Maxwell. We were actually traveling to Moja. We were talking about mRNA vaccines. And somewhere in our conversation, we happened to talk about cancer. And you know how carcinogens are able to cause cancer, or rather cause mutations in normal cells. It's interesting how bad kind of fats actually house carcinogens, or rather empower carcinogens to cause these severe mutations that we see in the world today. And it is very hard for someone with cancer to actually heal or get well when they abuse fat intake. So this particular topic is very, very essential to us, as I remember yesterday asking the group at GEMS, the group taking nutrition. I was asking them about their expectations of the course that they've just begun. And most of them say that they just want to at least have a knowledge of nutrition so that they can live a healthy life, and also help others with the knowledge that they have, which is a very good expectation. And your journey begins today. So lipids are essentially just fats and oils. That's the loosest word that I can use to describe what lipids are. And there are three forms of lipids. We have triglycerides, we have phospholipids, and we have steroids. Those are the three types, or the three forms of lipids that we have. Triglycerides, just um, take it as e- take it as fats in food. We call it fats in food, triglyceride, the fats that we have in food. And um, we'll see what triglycerides are. So let's proceed. So lipids are essentially made up of molecules, large molecules called macromolecules. And the functions of lipids include, we talked about these in our last class, in yesterday's class. Lipids, as I have said, they are fats and oils. They are essentially fats and oils in a layman's word. So, what are some of the functions of fats and oils in our body as human beings? Because we are talking about clinical nutrition. What are some of the uses? We won't dwell a lot on the structure of these particular forms of lipid, but we look at them to help us understand the differences that are in the differences between these lipids. So lipids helps in the structural support of cell, specifically phospholipids and cholesterol. They greatly help our cells to be flaccid. Our cells are normally a little flexible as opposed to being rigid. When your cells become rigid, things like hardening of arteries start occurring and hypertension follows suit. High blood pressure follows suit. So our cells should actually be um, flexible in a way. And it is the good kind of lipids that enable our cells to be flexible. So lipids offer structural support for the cells. And we'll see the bad kind of lipids actually that causes your cells to harden, the likes of saturated fatty acids. We will look into that and see what it means. Those are some of the things that cause adverse effects when it comes to coronary heart disease or cardiovascular health in general. So we have structural support for cells, and I've mentioned two, phospholipids and cholesterols. We have energy storage. When you hear the word energy in nutrition, it just means calories. And so calories are normally stored in form of fats in adipose tissues or in adipose cells, adipocytes. So when you take a lot of carbohydrates, there are two major sources of calories from our diet. We have fats and we have carbohydrates. Fats provide more calories than lipid. What am I even saying? Lipids or fats provide more calories than carbohydrates. So when you compare them gram to gram, fats provide more than 2 times the amount of calories provided to us by what? By carbohydrates. I remember telling us that yesterday in yesterday's class. And when we talk about energy storage, okay, so the calories that are in excess are normally stored in adipose site. Adipose are just fat cells. Adipocytes are fat cells. So they are stored in form of fats. And the other function of lipids are cell signaling. Cell signaling. I know the group at Umoja, I explained this well, in-depthly. Can someone probably tell us how fats helps in cell signaling? I want to see. Can someone give it a try? Uh, how does fat help in cell signaling? I believe my voice is loud and clear still. I only see two people here from yesterday's class. Anyone from Umoja? No. Okay, let's go back. So it helps in cell signaling. Signaling here, it simply means a message is sent to the cells, and the cells receive that message through receptors, And when the cells receive the message, they process that particular message. And so lipids or fats form part of that particular process of signaling of cells. And in that particular process, hormones are involved. And we have a group of hormones called, how they call steroid hormones. An example of a steroid hormone is testosterone, estrogen, which other one? Progesterone. Those are examples of steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are normally made from cholesterols largely. And there are several hormones that helps or act as messengers in our body. Like they carry messages from different sites in our body to a desired destination. That one we'll talk about more in module 2 of our training. So lipids are typically non-polar. Non-polar simply means they're insoluble in water and do not interact with water, though some exceptions actually exist. So the main forms or the main types of lipids, we have triglycerides, we have phospholipids, we have steroids and waxes. So we will majorly talk about triglycerides. Why? Because triglycerides are the fats that we get from the foods that we eat. Triglycerides simply mean tri inamaanisha three. Glyceride just means glycerol. You've probably heard of glycerin or something of that sort. So glyceride means glycerol. Glycerol. So triglyceride simply means that one glycerol, which is a fat, one glycerol is actually attached three to three chains of a carbon hydrogen bond. So one glyceride is attached to three chains of a carbon hydrogen bond. So I believe you can see that in this picture. So you can take this blue ball as a glycerol, and then these three green substances as the carbon hydrogen bond or chain. So one glycerol, when it is attached to a carbon hydrogen chain, a three carbon hydrogen chain, we call it a glycerol. So this is what majorly happens. We've said triglycerides are the fats that we get in our foods. And structurally, this is how they exist, the drawing that I've placed here. So this is what happens. When you eat your meals, this particular fat is digested in your system. We'll talk about the digestive system next week. Next week. So that's the group, the Gems of Insight group. So when you eat triglyceride, it is digested down to two things. Number one, it's digested to fatty acids. It is broken down to fatty acids. Fatty acids. These things will make sense as we proceed. Fatty acids and glycerol. 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 So transglycerides, the fats that are found in food, they are normally broken down in our digestive system, where specifically in the digestive system, some portion is broken down in the mouth, some portion is broken down in the stomach, and a larger portion is broken down in the duodenal part of your gut. So it's broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, two substances. And fatty acids are of major interest to us. Let's proceed. So we have lipids, the forms and properties of lipids. We've seen that the primary composition of lipids or fats, or just any food article that you eat, is hydrogen and carbon. Hydrogen and carbon are the elements that forms any kind of nutrient that we talked about yesterday. That is carbohydrate, protein, and fats, and even water. Yeah. So those hydrogen and carbon makes macronutrients. So we've also seen that lipids yield more than twice as much energy as carbohydrates when compared gram to gram. Let's say 1 gram of a fat, if 1 gram of a fat equals three, let's say not three, but six calories, it means that 1 gram of a carbohydrate will be about 2 to 3 calories, 1 gram of a carbohydrate. So from this, we see that fats, this one here, normally has a lot of caloric storage than lipids. So we've also seen that lipids, they do not dissolve in water. And we've seen the forms triglyceride, phospholipids, and steroids. And we've seen that triglycerides are, can someone tell us what we've said triglycerides are?
You have said that these are the fats that we get from the food that we eat.
Exactly, exactly. And when we eat these foods with these fats, how is triglyceride, to what is triglyceride broken? That will inform what we are about to discuss in the next slide, because that's what is actually even more important.
Fatty
Well, we
acids
have
and
said that
glycerol.
Oyathegu, I don't know who was speaking. Yeah, we can have one person speak. We've said that
They're broken down into fatty acids and glycerols.
fatty acid and glycerides. Exactly. So, fatty acids and glycerides. Let me go back to my slides. So we say triglycerides are the foods that we find, the fats that we find in our food, and they're normally broken down to fatty acids and glycerides. Ah, interesting. So I believe today's class, I believe after today's class, no one will say that we've talked about difficult things that are hard for man to understand. So I want us to talk about types of fatty acids. So we've seen where fatty acids come from. So I want us to talk about types of fatty acids. We have two major types of fatty acids. Can someone tell us the types of fatty acids that they probably know? If you have if you have a, if you probably come across that before. Anyone? Fatty acids. And this is what we'll be using in our fat choices, fatty acids. This is what will be guiding us. So, can someone tell us type some? Wow, I've forgotten to record, and I'm supposed to be recording all these sessions. This is terrible. Pamela, you can kindly mute. Can someone tell us the types of fatty acids that we probably know?
Saturated and unsaturated.
So number one, someone says saturated. And once we understand what these two things are, that will be the end of our class today. And treatment of any condition largely depends on an understanding on fats. Saturated. You said unsaturated.
None.
None. It should be
It's
unsaturated.
unsaturated.
Is there any other that I'm leaving? Leo mwalimu hana idea. Muniokoe leo. Is there any other that I'm leaving?
Trans fats.
Essential fatty
Someone
acids.
says
Essential fatty acids.
Ah, okay, interesting. So to make it easy, there are actually just two types of fatty acids. But under unsaturated, we have mono, unsaturated. We'll understand what these things are. We'll understand their sources, and then we have poly. That's under unsaturated poly, unsaturated, polyunsaturated. And then someone said essential fatty acids. Since essential fatty acids are under polyunsaturated fatty acids, essential. What are the essential fatty acids, you know?
Omega-3.
Essential fatty acids. You can check with me the spellings online. Really, I hope these are the spellings I'm writing. So someone says omega-3. Allow me just to make your life a little difficult by saying linolenic acid and lino. It's okay to say omega-3, omega-6, but the plant form of omega-3 and omega-6 are linolenic and linoleic. I believe these are the spellings. Linoleic. Yeah, those are the plant forms of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. So I want you to know that we do not find omega-3 and omega-6 in plant sources, but we have precursors, things that when you eat them, the body transforms them to omega-3 and omega-6. A good example is we cannot find vitamin A in any plant source, but we can find a precursor of vitamin A called beta carotene. So beta carotene is found in things like squash. You can find it in things like carrots, you know. You can find it in things like inaitwangwaje. I believe everyone here understands English, but there are people who don't. So based on the recording, they might probably get confused. So we have tomatoes as well. So they have beta carotene. When we eat some of these particular foods, the beta carotene will be transformed, or it will be metabolized. It will be metabolized into vitamin A, essentially. So these are the types of fatty acids that we have. We have saturated and we have unsaturated. Unsaturated can further be grouped into two: mono unsaturated and poly unsaturated. We have a type of polyunsaturated fatty acid called essential. There are several types of polyunsaturated, but we'll talk about essential fatty acid, and we'll only talk about essential fatty acids because this is the kind of fatty acids that we have to get from our diets. The other types of polyunsaturated fatty acids are actually just made in the body. So This is it. Are we together up to this point? Are there any questions so far? Are there any questions?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So we've said that I normally suffer problem of repeating a lot. So, and najua first learners, when you repeat something over and over again, it becomes more boring. You'll kindly bear with me if you're a first learner. You'll kindly bear with me. You'll allow me to be a little more boring for the sake of others. We've said that triglycerides. We've said that triglycerides. This is what we'll talk about today. We've said that triglycerides are just dietary fats. Dietary fats. Fats in food. Fats in food. Fats you find in foods. And they're normally broken down in our foods to form fatty acids, because triglycerides are essentially just made up of fatty acids and glycerol combined. Glycerol. So they're broken down to fatty acids and glycerol. And the fatty acids are the ones that are of much benefit to us when we talk about when talking about clinical nutrition, when talking about nutrition in relation to diseases. So yeah, and so we've said we've been able to establish that fatty acids, we have two major types of fatty acids: unsaturated and saturated. So this is it. Saturated, we've said that fats are majorly made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen bonds. All the nutrients are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as molecules, as the elements that make them. So when we talk about saturated simply, what it means is that this particular fatty acid is saturated with hydrogen. It has a lot of hydrogen. It is saturated with hydrogen. That is what saturated fatty acids mean. It means that the fatty acid is saturated with hydrogen. It has a lot of hydrogen. Unsaturated, on the other hand, we look at structures to actually help us understand these ones a little more in depthly. Unsaturated, on the other hand, what it simply means is that it lacks some hydrogen. It lacks some hydrogen in the carbon hydrogen bond. It lacks some hydrogen. So we'll see the side effects of all this. So it lacks some hydrogen. So when we talk about mono normally means one. So mono means that it lacks one hydrogen to the carbon hydrogen bond. Poly means it lacks two or more. Two plus. So it lacks 2 plus hydrogen in the carbon hydrogen bond. Are we together up to that point? We've said that fatty acids are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as elements. These are just bonds. They are chains that zinashikana tu kama chains, like they're chains that bind to each other, forming fats, and there are specific fats that are loaded with hydrogen. They are saturated with hydrogen, so we call them saturated fatty acids. And then the fatty acids that lack some hydrogen, we call them unsaturated fatty acids. And the ones that lack one hydrogen is called monounsaturated. The one that lacks two or more hydrogens are called polyunsaturated fatty acids. Are we together up to that point? Okay, so let's see the bonds. This makes it a little hard. The bonds just helps us understand. So a fatty acid is made up of a carboxylic group. A carboxylic group is that bond carbon, hydrogen, water, oxygen, not water. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. They bond. If they bond together, we call that carboxylic group. And then to that carboxylic group, we have an hydrogen attached to it. Hydrogen. We have hydrogen attached to it. So when you look at saturated fatty acids is very, very straight and compact. There are no double bonds at all in it. There are no double bonds at all. That's why we say that, like this one here, this one here, don't worry bonds. So majorly unsaturated fatty acids zinakuanga straight, and where there is a double bond it bends. Just look at what I'm drawing in blue. They are straight, and where there's a double bond it bends. It becomes straight, where there's a double bond it bends. So they're normally kinked in nature. Unsaturated fatty acids are normally kinked or bent in nature. They're always bent in nature. And this particular bentness helps our cell walls to be flexible. But here iko very straight, this one that is very straight, it means that it is very compact. The carbon hydrogen bonds are very close to each other and they're very compact. And so they can cause hardening. They can cause hardening of cells. I believe we are together. This is just placed here to help us understand a few things. So this is how they look like. The first diagram, I'll circle it A. I've circled it with a lot of circles. I'll give us time to look at it. That is saturated fatty acids. You can see how it is very straight. And by the fact that it is straight, it means those particular carbons and hydrogen are very close to each other and compact in nature, making it hard. That's why saturated fatty acids are normally solid in room temperature. You've probably heard of solid fats are not good for you. That's the reason. When you eat solid fats, the saturated fatty acids will make your flexible cell walls hard and rigid, causing a lot of problems. And in making them hard and rigid, it will actually make them porous, allowing anything and everything to pass through them. But your cells should always be selectively permeable. Like there are certain things that your cells allow to get into them and things that they reject. But taking saturated fats makes your cell wall permeable. It makes your cell wall allow everything to pass through them. I really don't know if we are together, if we are all together.
Wow. Which one is Richard?
Yes? Someone asked a question. So let's proceed. So we've seen how saturated fatty acids are, and unsaturated fatty acids are too. So in monounsaturated, they only lack one hydrogen. So they always just have one double bond, as you can see here. And for polyunsaturated, they have more than one double bond, as you can see. That's one, that's two, that's three. 1, 2, 3, polyunsaturated. So polyunsaturated are actually more healthy as compared to mono. Mono are also very, very healthy. But when you compare the two, they are more healthy. Poly are more healthy due to the presence of several bonds. We'll proceed. We'll proceed. We'll proceed. Let me change my pen to black. So we've now seen the structures, we've seen the difference between the two, but something that probably will make more sense to you is the sources of these particular fats, the fatty acids. Saturated fats are found in two sources. Number one, we call it tropical oils, and animal products. So can someone tell us some of the animal products that they probably know?
Ghee.
Yes?
Ghee.
You said beef.
Ghee. I don't know this. They call ghee. Ghee.
Yeah, we have ghee.
Cheese.
We have cheese.
Butter.
We have butter. So you're naming the sources of saturated fatty acids. You should actually write them down if you're taking notes. We have butter. Somebody else? We have milk, we have eggs, we have meat, any kind of meat. Sindio, right? Is that right? So saturated fatty acids, its main source is animal, and that's 80% of it. And then we have tropical oils, just two oils that contain saturated. We have coconut, and those are the tropical oils, and we have palm. Actually, there are three. We have palm oil, and then we have the palm kernel oil. I really hope when I'm writing you guys notes, I'll remember these things that I'm writing here. We have palm kernel oil. So those are the three top tropical oils. The ones that we majorly have in Kenya is coconut and the red palm oil. I've never met palm kernel oil. So those are the sources. And there are two types of saturated fatty acids. We'll see that there's the long chain and the short chain. The short chain, majorly we find them from tropical oils, and the long chain, we majorly find them from animal sources. And the long chain fatty acids are worse, or rather, they cause cardiovascular problems as compared to the short chain. The short chain, they're easily broken down. Actually, they're easily broken down. Their chains are easily broken down, so they don't cause much a problem in your system. So if you take a coconut oil or palm oil, it is very, very safe. Why? Because the saturated fatty acids that are found in them are short-chain saturated fatty acids, and they can easily be broken down by your digestive juices. But animal fats, it's different. Long chain one. Can you let me let me keep. I like to ask someone a question. Really like to ask someone a question. Betty, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you probably tell us your main takeaway from our discussion so far?
I can try.
Yes.
I've learned today that saturated fatty acids are not the best.
Mm-hmm.
They are hardened and they allow everything to pass through. I mean, they are permeable. They are not permeable. And, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Here for tropical oil,
Yes.
I didn't start well what you meant by coconut.
Mm-hmm.
You said they are affected by the body easily, whether they are best or just 50. I am not sure.
Can you come up again on the coconut? I didn't get you clearly.
The coconut, it has
Yes.
foreign unsaturated fatty acids.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking if it is best for human consumption.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. So, saturated fatty acids. Effects. The first effect we've said, causes your cell walls to be permeable. Causes the cell walls to be permeable. You can Google what permeable means. Permeable inamaanisha porous, kitu kama net, porous ama perforated, something of that sort. That's number one. Number two, it causes the cell walls to harden. And when the cell wall hardens, it can cause conditions like hypertension, high blood pressure. If your cell wall hardens, it can cause conditions like coronary heart disease, coronary heart disease. Those are the two effects that we've talked about so far of saturated fatty acids. And we've said that the sources of saturated fatty acids are majorly two. Number one is animal sources. Those are all animal products, flesh, all animal products, flesh, milk, and eggs. And so taking these particular sources of saturated fatty acids would cause these particular problems. According to the World Nutrition, it is said that our saturated fatty acid intake should be less than 10% of our daily dietary intake. approximately less than 10%. So the other source tumesema, we've said that the other source is tropical oils. We've listed what these tropical oils are. So, and we've said that there are two types of saturated fatty acids. Number one, we've seen long chain. Number two, we've seen short chain. And we've seen that short chain are majorly found in the tropical oils. They're easily digested. The bonds are easily broken down, causing minimal health effects, causing minimal health effects. So a question has been posed on one of the tropical oils, coconut oil. And the question is it healthy? Coconut oil is largely a saturated fatty acid.
It's 21
and
hours.
It contains short chain. Fatty acids, which we've seen are easily digested. Well, I don't know the spelling of easy. Oh, that's terrible. Wow. Let me leave it alone. Easy. Okay, this is interesting. So, which are easily digested and cause minimal side effects. And that would mean that coconut oil is definitely healthy. So there's normally a confusion between there are normally two types of coconut oils. There's one that is majorly meant for external use, and there's one that is majorly meant for internal use, for cooking. So the one that is meant for cooking, you can even use it as well for external use, kujipak and all that. So the best coconut oil is cold pressed. Coconut oil. You'll find it in any good supermarket, or even in our website. You can order it there from next month. You can always place your orders in our website. So, in any good supermarket. So that's the simplest and the shortest answer that I can give to that question. Coconut oil, there are two types. There's that one that is applied externally, and there's one that is meant to be used orally in cooking. The one that is used orally for cooking can actually be applied also, and you can use it raw, provided it is cold pressed. It is very, very safe. So tropical oils are very, very safe and healthy when taken in very low amounts. You don't have to take them a lot. So I want us to proceed to unsaturated fatty acids. Are there any questions so far on saturated fatty acids? I believe we are together. And when we'll be talking about the cardiovascular system, for those taking nutrition as a course, when we'll be talking about the cardiovascular system, an understanding of what we've discussed today will come in handy in helping us manage the conditions of that particular system. I don't know why you guys don't want to ask questions. It makes me feel uneasy. It makes me feel like nafaa kurudia kitu, like I really need to repeat something. But either way, I don't know the approach to take when talking about unsaturated fatty acids. Let me see if I have any notes on it. Kumbe I placed a table here on saturated fatty acids. So they're normally solid at room temperature. That for the long chain are definitely very solid at room temperature. For the medium or short chain, they are soft and at times they can become liquid. If you've handled coconut oil, you can attest. I'll come with coconut oil on Sunday to the group at Umoja so that you can actually see how coconut oil looks. I'll come with coconut oil and red palm oil as well. So the butter that is always in milk, that one, that particular cream, it's also a short chained fatty acid. So monounsaturated fatty acids, I don't know how to go about this one. The unsaturated fatty acids. I don't know if I left a space here to write. Let me see. But I like talking about unsaturated fatty acids. Let me just, let me give us a minute or two to probably drink water. Okay, I hope we took the water break serious. We proceed. It's like there's a question in the chat box. Let me see. That was an answer given long ago. So let's proceed. I want to ensure that the last time we talked about fats, we took 2 lessons, but today I want to ensure that we take a lesson, one single lesson talking about all this. So polyunsaturated, or rather unsaturated fatty acids, we've said that there are two. We have mono and poly. And I think when I talk about the sources, and that's a very good place to start. Let me talk about their sources in red. Sources. Can someone tell us some of the sources that they probably know? This is serious. I don't even know the spelling of sources. This is serious. I think that's the spelling. Sources. Can someone tell us the sources of monounsaturated fatty acids? I'd like to get that from us. Anyone who reads ahead, or anyone who has come across such information before. Anyone. Don't feel shy. No answer is okay. I'll be lying if I say no answer is wrong. But you can just give it a shot. Anyone? Anyone's yeah. I want our class today to be very engaged. Anyone?
I can try.
Yes, go ahead, bro.
Avocado oil.
Yes, avocado oil.
Olive oil.
I'm sure about olive oil. That one I'm sure. Olive. Another one?
Is canola oil one of them?
Canola. There are two types of canola. There's one that is literally made from the canola itself, but there's a canola which is just more or less a trade name. But I believe the canola oil that is sold in Kenya is made from inaitwangwa rapeseed, I believe. I believe it's made from rapeseed. I normally shy away from buying canola because at times you might never know if the word canola is just a generic name or probably the rapeseed itself. Someone else? So there's avocado, there's olive, there's canola. Anybody? Any other trial?
Peanut oil.
Yeah, all nuts. All nuts have monounsaturated fatty acids. So from peanuts, well, actually peanuts normally, they normally have a lot of fats. If you are probably someone who'd like to add weight, this is one of the things that should not miss in your diet. Nuts, majorly peanuts, they have a lot of fats, and the good kind of fats. They don't have saturated fats at all. Yes. Anybody else? I think we've exhausted the list. We can probably
Coconut.
move. Coconut. Coconut. Who said coconut?
Pamela.
So coconut actually has all these kind of fats, poly, mono, but it has more saturated fatty acids than the other kind of fats. So we normally group coconut under tropical oils and under saturated fatty acids. But it has all these other oils as well in some low quantities. I'll probably share with you guys a picture of that. About 90% of coconut about 92% of coconut saturated fatty acids, and 6% ni monounsaturated, and then 2% there ni poly unsaturated. So 6% mono, 2% poly, and 92% saturated. Yeah, so I think we've exhausted that list. How about poly? What are the sources of polyunsaturated fatty acids? Knowing these, the sources are more important. What are the sources of poly?
Sunflower oil.
Yes, we have sunflower. Who said sunflower?
Winnie.
Yes, some other. Anybody else?
Corn.
We have corn. Anybody else? Some other person. You just mention it. I'll tell you whether it's wrong or right. Just mention it.
Corn oil.
We have corn. I'll just write it as corn. Another one.
Flax oil.
Yes, you've said
Flax oil.
flaxseed. Are you talking about flaxseed?
Yes.
I hope you're talking about flaxseed. So flaxseed has the essential fatty acids. Flaxseed oil. This one I can write oil. Sunflower I can write oil. Corn I won't write oil because I really recommend anyone to take corn oil. So there's no proper corn oil. There's no healthy corn oil actually existing in the market. The ones that exist have gone through a series of refining using very heavy chemicals. So if you want to get your poly unsaturated fatty acid from corn, just eat the corn. We have three types of corn. We have popcorn, we have the sweet corn, and we have the maize that is common to Mexico and Africa. Yeah, so we have flaxseed. Some other source? Anybody else? Someone?
Fish oils.
Yeah, we have fish as essential fatty acids, the omega-3 and 6 to some degree. But our course measures on plant-based sources of these particular healthy fats. The reason why I won't write fish oil is because the essential fatty acids that we find in fish is very unstable. The moment the fish is actually fished, the oil begins degrading, and by the time you probably eat it, you'll end up eating no oil at all. And then the other side effects that comes with taking fish. Yesterday we talked about things like heavy metal toxicity. We talked about viral infections yesterday. We also talked about cholesterol. And the way that fish is actually prepared nowadays, deep frying makes it even worse. We'll talk about deep frying food, and we'll see how foods that have been deep fried have additional hydrogen in them. So when you deep fry fish, which has unsaturated fatty acid, you make it saturated. By deep frying, you make it saturated. Why? Because when you expose it to heat, you add more hydrogen in it. So you saturate it with hydrogen, forming trans fatty acids, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about trans fatty acids, and that's the worst kind of oil that you can actually put into your body. And these are the things that are carcinogenic. Those are the oils that are carcinogenic. Any other source?
Walnuts.
Yes, we have walnuts. Walnuts usually unsaturated fatty acids. There are some essential fatty acids on walnuts. Anybody else?
Marim, how about almonds?
Almonds is in both. Almonds is a nut. We placed all nuts under monounsaturated because they're more mono. But almonds here, it has linolenic acid and linoleic acid, so we can have them here as well. But any other?
Sesame oil.
I'll put sesame here. Any other? A very good oil. Very expensive. Any other? I normally prefer using sesame for salad dressing. We'll talk about dressing salads. That's the GEMS group, so don't worry. Any other oil? Have you guys ever seen soybean oil? But I won't write soybean oil. I'll just write soybean. Just take your soybean and you'll get the oil from the soybean. It's very hard to find good soybean oil. And the ones that are in the market have been highly refined, making them harmful. And in their process, heat is used, making the unsaturated fatty acids in them become saturated. I'll talk about safflower. To my students in the United States and UK, they can easily find safflower oil. So just make sure that it is cold pressed safflower oil. In Kenya, it might be a little difficult finding safflower. Any other? So we've seen how we have several types of oils that you can actually use as an individual. So we have, those are the sources. I really hope that you've probably listed them down. Let's go back to our table and see the sources.
Excuse me, teacher, how about in macadamia?
Macadamia.
Yeah, nuts.
Macadamia has unsaturated fatty acids. Macadamia has unsaturated. So these are the sources we have qualified can kindly mute. We have sunflower and all that, and majorly unsaturated fatty acids are liquid in nature. I believe you can see how the essential fatty acids, they're liquid and all that. So omega-3 is called alpha-linolenic acid, and it helps in reducing inflammation responses. And flaxseed is a very good one when a very good source of omega-3, and also hemp oil. Hemp is actually used hemp oil is a very powerful oil in reducing pains. Flaxseed also reduces pain a lot. I normally use flaxseed tea for liver inflammations. Flaxseed tea for liver inflammations. So, omega-3 in plants, it is called alpha-linolenic acid. It helps in reducing inflammation. It helps in promoting blood clotting, and it also increases plasma triglyceride levels. And then omega-6 is called linoleic acid in plants. It's called linoleic acid, and it helps in regulating blood pressure, and also it increases the blood clotting factors. So you can get that by taking sunflower, corn, and safflower. You don't have to take beef, you don't have to take poultry. Why? Because of what we talked about yesterday, the side effects, the other negative things that they come with. So if you can get something that is more healthy with less harmful effect, you'd rather go for something that is more healthy. Let's say you You want omega-3 fatty acids, and you have two sources, a plant source and an animal source. And you know very well that animal sources, in as much as they have omega-3 fatty acids, they tend to make the body acidic, increasing inflammation. So the omega-3 in them will not in any way help in reducing the inflammation that you have. So you'd rather take things like walnuts, you'd rather take things like flaxseed or hemp oil to help reduce such kinds of inflammation, or to help alkalize your body for better. So what I want to say is that when we talk about polyunsaturated fatty acids, there are normally two types of cholesterols. We said yesterday that we have a type of cholesterol called LDL, and LDL normally gets harmful when it increases. So when you take sources of monounsaturated fatty acids helps in reducing cholesterol levels. So when you take things like avocado, fruit, when you take things like olive oil or canola oil, or when you take nuts, they help lower your cholesterol levels in the body, and they'll always ensure that your cholesterols do not rise. That's why we should always be taking these particular fats daily. And so when you get a patient having high cholesterol levels, one of the things that you'll always advise them to do, number one, is to increase their daily intake of fiber. And yesterday we learned that one of the ways of increasing daily intake of fiber is increasing your intake of fruits, increasing your intake of vegetables, and also taking whole grains. By doing that, you shall have increased your daily intake of fiber. So increase fiber in high cholesterol patients. That's number one, increase fiber. And then number two, check on the fats that they're using. If they're using saturated fatty acids, the animal ones, the animal sources, advise them to stop. And then give them an alternative. What's the alternative? Unsaturated fatty acids. And which specific types of unsaturated fatty acids? The monounsaturated fatty acids and also the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So you can a good way of doing this is just preparing for them. I'm telling them to prepare some vegetable salad, and in that vegetable salad they can dress it with some olive oil or avocado oil, or coconut. No, I won't advise on coconut oil. Olive oil or avocado oil, and then they put some nuts, inside there, cashew, almonds, some walnuts, whichever, depending on what they can actually afford, and advise them that that should always form part of their daily meal. Taking some vegetable salad, well cut. I normally prefer vegetable salads being cut in large pieces or large sizes. It's palatable when done that way, and actually even the sight looks welcoming. Like kuiangalia too looks quite appealing, and you can easily I don't even know what I was about to say, but that's just it. But those are things that we'll talk about in the cardiovascular system. You have no need to worry. I know the group at Umoja, we've talked about them severally, over and over again. It's just a walkover. So those are the sources of poly and mono unsaturated fatty acids. So tumeona that specifically unsaturated fatty acids will help protect your heart, it will help protect your blood vessels, and it will help ensure that your blood is thin enough to transport nutrients and minerals to the destinations where they are needed. And so unsaturated fatty acids should be part of your meals. Avoid saturated at all cost. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll ask us a question as we proceed, as we end. So this is where now things now become difficult or gets difficult. I want us to talk about trans fats. This is our last topic of the day, our last point of discussion. We've talked about all these other four. I want us to now talk about trans fat. So trans fatty acid are actually the worst kind of fatty acids that you can take. They increase blood cholesterol level more than saturated fats. They cause things like atherosclerotic plagues. We talked about atherosclerotic plaguing yesterday. I believe you still remember what that is. Do you remember?
Mwalimu yesterday, was there a class yesterday?
Not for us.
Group at Umoja, if you didn't have a class, even if you didn't have a class, we had a class yesterday, but not with you guys. There's a group that had a class yesterday. But you also know what atherosclerotic plaguing is. I'm the one actually who taught that. So if you actually don't recall what atherosclerotic plague is, who unto you? You should remember at least. But I won't be ignorant not to remind you what it is. Atherosclerotic plagues are just cholesterol or fats that have hardened in your arteries and block they block or make the arteries. Someone feels very nice distracting the class always muted. I don't know why someone would join distracting us. So trans fatty acids. I want us to understand what trans fats are. This is where now the chemistry comes in. That's where I placed this one. So the only types of fats that can become trans fatty acids, okay, unsaturated fatty acids, when they are cooked in the wrong way, they become trans fatty acids. Have you ever heard of hydrogenation? Can someone tell us what hydrogenation is? I thank God today at least we've not had any network problems. And it's so unfortunate we didn't pray when beginning our class. Can someone tell us what hydrogenation is? I know you guys are lovers of bread, lovers of cakes.
Maybe it's when you fry the oil.
Hydrogenation. Another time. Wow. We are 20 in the class. Suffer. Kevin, you are the class president.
This one or all?
Have we talked about hydrogenation before? This one.
Yes, I think we have.
Helen, what's hydrogenation? Watu wameanza kutoka meeting.
I can try.
Yes, Kevin.
The fats with the 2 hydrogen bonds, I think.
I can give
Did
it a try.
Yes, give it a try.
For example, if there is some liquid oil like the ones in the supermarket, and then it turns into a solid. It has gone hydrogenation.
It's interesting. Now you guys are about to graduate in a month's time. Saddens my heart to really it's saddening. But acha niachane na feelings. Acha niache feelings kando. So hydrogenation is essentially kuongeza hydrogen or just adding hydrogen to a particular fat. So let's say if it's a liquid fat, the main reason why it would be probably liquid is because it has less hydrogen. So adding more hydrogen to it would make it solid. A good example of a fat that has gone through hydrogenation is margarine. You know Blue Band, and that's a good example. And a good example of a trans fat, Blue Band. A good example of a trans fat. You'd rather even take meat than apply your bread using Blue Band. So let me explain how that happens. So we saw that in unsaturated fatty acids, they have less hydrogen. So if something has less hydrogen, it means that they can easily be given hydrogen, and when hydrogen is added to them, then they'll become saturated fatty acids, but a very worst form of saturated fatty acids. This is a very easy diagram to understand, and I really hope and believe that we'll understand. But if you don't understand, just take it as I have said, hydrogenation is adding hydrogen to some liquid fat or liquid oil. Liquid lipids are normally called oils. So adding hydrogen to oil to harden it. So when you add the hydrogen to oil, we call that hydrogenated oil. It becomes a fat, and it becomes a trans fatty acid. Yeah. So this is what typically happens when you now get a little in depth. There is what is known as cis and trans fatty acids. And the cis fatty acids are much more common in foods than the trans fatty acids. So trans fatty acids are primarily found in foods that are partially hydrogenated fats, and examples are margarine shortenings and deep fat fried foods. So a good example of a cis fatty acid is oleic acid. Oleic acid is a type of mono unsaturated fatty acid. So oleic acid is a type of mono unsaturated fatty acids. And when we talk about monounsaturated fatty acids, they have they lack one hydrogen. And that means that they have one double bond, carbon-carbon double bond. So we saw when the class was beginning, we saw that we're about to end our class, don't worry. We saw that when the class was beginning, we saw that unsaturated fatty acids, they're normally bent or kinked in nature, Where there's a double bond, it bends. Where there's a double bond, it bends. So they're normally zigzag and bent, making them making them very flexible and easy to break down or digest. So a cis fatty acid, as I have said, they are more or less just acids where the bond, these white ones, the hydrogen bonds are on one side of a double carbon-carbon bond. So a cis fatty acids. In cis fatty acid, the hydrogen bond in the double carbon-carbon bond, they normally lie on the same side. I'm just trying to explain so that you understand. You don't have to understand these technical things. What you really need to understand is the foods that have these things and how we can actually cook our foods to form trans fatty acids, to turn cis fatty acids to trans fatty acids. But explaining it a little more in depth is an added advantage to him who will actually to him will be able to grasp. And when you grasp it, it will actually even make you more confident when you explain to someone why you eat what you eat, or rather when you're even talking to a patient, it will be an added advantage. It will put you at a vantage point in terms of explaining something better to a patient so that they can easily understand and just buy um, whatever um, whatever ideas you are giving them. Because believe me, you'll meet patients who are learned. You'll meet patients who are learned. You'll even be treating doctors, and you are you'll even be treating doctors, and what will actually separate you probably from the rest is your ability to and explain to them a little more in depth some of these things so that they can reason with you out. But if you deem it unnecessary, it's also well and good. There are other things that are actually even more necessary than what I'm explaining right now. So we have what is known as double bonds, and in cis form, the carbon bonds are normally on the same side. In a trans form, the carbon bonds are on opposite sides. I believe you can see this second diagram too. You can see the white balls are on separate sides. On diagram 1, the white balls are on the same side. So that is in cis. In cis, the white balls are on the same side, making it bend. So when the balls are on the same side, it bends. When the balls are on different sides, opposite sides, it becomes flat, and it becomes straight. So, and we know that only saturated fatty acids are normally straight. So the second diagram is an example of a saturated fatty acid. It's a trans fat. So I want to explain further than this. So in trans form, the hydrogen that flanks a double bond lie on opposite sides of the double bond. This causes the fatty acids to exist in a linear form like saturated fatty acids. That's just what is contained here. So let's say, for example, if you deep fry your it's interesting. You know, human beings are interesting beings. There are those even who deep fry nuts, cashew. There are those who deep fry nuts. Have you ever eaten peanuts that have been deep fried, Helen? Melissa, have you ever come across peanuts that are deep fried? I've asked two people questions. I don't know whether Helen is still here, and Melissa. You can both answer. Have you ever come across peanuts that are deep fried? You know, human beings are quite interesting beings.
Yes,
Yeah, there are people who have. Helen has, Winnie has.
I have.
You Jane also has. So human beings are quite interesting beings. And the worst thing, peanuts in a pangana, it has some proteins in it. It's interesting. I have to stick to English. So peanuts have some proteins in it, and it also has unsaturated fatty acids in it. So when you boil peanuts, you're actually making these unsaturated fatty acids in peanuts to be saturated, making them more, making them worse, And then you'll say that you are a vegetarian, you are a vegan, you don't take meat, but you are sick. You don't understand the reason why you are sick. But it's not the cooking that is bad. And majorly, when I normally cook my tofu, I normally avoid frying it the way we did in our last practical. I normally just put it in an oven, bake it in an oven, and then eat it baked. I normally don't fry it. Yeah, but when you fry using olive oil has a high amount of how is it called? I've started forgetting a lot. But deep frying foods is really not advisable because of what I just explained here in this picture. So, what are some of the sources of trans fatty acids? So, deep fried foods, margarines, flakes. These are things that only Valerie will understand. And then we have things like shortenings. Other sources I placed here direct you from Google. We have fried foods. An example is French fries, fried chicken, donuts, the mandazis that we are used to, and other deep fried fast foods are major sources of trans fats. Worse, trans fats are worse. You'd rather take even meat, boiled or even meat. You'd rather even take raw meat. So commercial baked goods like cakes, they have that a lot because they use margarine to cook them. Cookies, they normally use things like margarine to cook them. Pastries, pies, often contain trans fats, especially those that are made with shortenings. You can make healthy cakes, you can make healthy cookies, you can make healthy biscuits, actually, without these particular trans fats. Then we have margarine and shortenings. Stick margarine and vegetable shortenings are high in trans fats. So vegetable oil they normally have trans fats. Vegetable oils, they have some degree of trans fats in them. Things like Elianto, I don't know the oils that are there out in the market, but my mom used to use we loved using Elianto back at home. It's been quite some time since I went back home. But yeah, Elianto. So I only know Elianto as one of the vegetable oils out there in the market. I don't know the other one. There's one called Rena as well. They all have this bad kind of fat, so you should always avoid them. You might say, oh, you've reformed you take a plant-based diet, but you somehow got cancer, and you want, how did I get cancer? These are the things, fats. Processed snacks, things like crackers, those in US can understand this more. Microwave popcorns, you buy your child such things. You'd rather just pop the popcorns at home. Other process. What's wrong? What's wrong?
I think they're just unmuted, so continue.
Oh, let me mute.
You have mentioned about the microwaves. Now, are microwaves good to be used?
No, don't use a microwave, use an oven. Just use an oven. Ovens are better. microwaves use radiation, and when the carbons and the hydrogen, the elements that are in food, what radiation does is they increase the frequency. How microwaves normally heat food. If you probably loved physics, I used to love physics. I used to love physics a lot. So what microwave does is it increases the frequency, like the vibration of the molecules that are in food. So when that's the radiation in microwave. So when these particular molecules vibrate more, the more they vibrate, the hotter the food becomes. So they can vibrate to an extent that they can be carcinogenic. And then you'll say, oh, I'm a reformer, but I ended up having cancer. Reform is not the way. These guys are lying to us, but it's your microwave lying to you. So avoid microwaves. Just use an oven. Ovens are better. They don't use radiations. Refrigerated donut, refrigerated dough. This is not donut dough. This one I'll have to check into it more and just see how it causes. It makes trans fats. That one I'll check more. I'll get back to you on that tomorrow. And also frozen pizza, but you shouldn't eat pizza either way. You can make your own pizza at home in a healthy way. We have non-dairy coffee, cream, and animal products. So animal products, while most trans fats are in the diet are artificially produced, that's why they're actually bad, because they're artificial. Some animal products like beef, lamb, butter, milk, and cheese naturally contain trace amounts. I actually normally tell my students that if you boil milk, you're actually turning the oil that is in milk into trans fats. Yeah, which is really not healthy. So that is just it for today's session. Avoid sources of trans fats, avoid trans fatty acids like plague. These are plagues that needs to be avoided. Check essential fatty acids, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. These ones should not be taken. Long chain should not be taken at all. Avoid them. Yeah. So that is just it for today. And just to conclude our class. So we've seen that products that contain the hydrogenated vegetable oils, migraine sauces, or industrial baked goods, the fried foods, they are normally prepared that way. They stay for long. And the main reason why hydrogenation happens, the trans fats and all that, is to help increase the shelf life of some of these things. It's a good thing, yes. But on the other hand, when you look at it on a different angle, it makes us lazy. Because you'll probably say, let me bake bread that I'll take throughout the month or for the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's making someone lazy, instead of probably just baking bread to take in a day. And then probably if you need to take bread again in the same week, you just bake again, instead of using harmful things or using dubious means. So these things are normally just use the vegetable oils and all that. They normally make food tasty, soft, sweet, and increase their shelf life, and then also increase the pockets of those who are making them. But on the other hand, they have diverse health effects. They increase other people's pockets. Why? Because they stay long in the shelf, but they are harmful to your health, increasing cholesterol, increasing atherosclerotic plaguing, increasing heart conditions, Those are some of the major causes of diabetes. Actually, diabetes is not caused with sugar. The major cause of diabetes is just cholesterol buildup in the mitochondria. There's an organelle in your cell called mitochondria. It normally produces energy, it forms energy. It uses glucose to form energy. So, and there's a lot of buildup of, oxidized cholesterol that comes from boiled milk, that comes from fried eggs. We'll talk about cholesterol. That comes from, trans fatty acids or high saturated fatty acid levels. It causes, things like diabetes, things like obesity, which are very harmful to our health. So regular consumption of trans fatty acids are also related to breast cancer cases and postmenopause, these particular symptoms that women normally have during menopause and all that. So love yourself. Yeah, so that's just all that I'll talk about today. I feel like I've spoken my heart out. Hyperlipidemia is high lipid levels in your blood. There are three types of lipids. There's low LDL, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein, and triglyceride. And taking the bad kinds of fats that we've talked about increases lipid levels in your system. And that's why people normally just drop dead at times. You wonder why. You at times normally feel very fatigued, very tired, frequent headaches, dizziness. You wonder why. You tell yourself, you console yourself, you're not sick, but you're always tired. You console yourself, you're not sick, but you always feel some symptoms. At least when you go to the hospital, you're given medications to just reduce some of those pains. So I really don't know if I made sense. I really don't know if today's class was hard, but that's where we stop.
You made a lot of sense.
Thank you. So if we set an exam on facts, you guys will forget everything. Single.
Mwalimu, as you have told us about these oils, now are we going to have any cookery class so that we know how we are supposed to cook vegetables, how we are supposed to fry it? Because now, by saying at least we are supposed to see it practical so that we know how to, because most of us, the way we cook maybe it's very dangerous.
Almost. Yeah, olive oil has high boiling point, Winnie. Winnie always got my back when I forget something. You'll pass with flying colors. So, my laptop is almost dying. So, another cookery class that is subject to discussion. We've had a cookery class before, and I believe we explained some of these things. Probably it's subject to discussion. We'll see, because we really don't have time. I really don't see where we can squeeze a practical. I'm talking to the group at Umoja. I really don't see where we can squeeze a practical class. But it's subject to discussion. You can discuss and just let us know. So, that's just it on my end. I wanted to ask a question, but I see we only have 3 minutes left. I won't ask the question. Probably in our next class, I might. So, yeah, that is it. let's believe and pray to end our class unless there are any other questions. Felix, how was today's class? I know you didn't attend yesterday's, but